Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. So I came across a clip yesterday, a sit down that Phil Jackson had on the Dan Patrick show. And it was an absolute treat for me because you seldom hear from Phil Jackson on anything. But while he was there, Dan Patrick decided to ask him about some of what was said in the aftermath of the Last Dance docuseries. As you guys know, one person in particular that wasn't happy with with Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, to be frank with you, was one Scottie Pippen. And he didn't hide his feelings about that when he went on this very Dan Patrick show. I think he was promoting some type of liquor that day, and he absolutely went off on Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan. It was pretty nuts. But one of the things that upset Scottie Pippen was the fact that MJ highlighted some of the low moments in his career, and one of them was when he refused to go back in Game 3. I think it was in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't remember exactly when. And that was kind of viewed as a stain on his legacy. And he was very, very upset about that. Well, what we didn't know was that apparently in the aftermath of that taking place, Michael Jordan called Phil Jackson in private to basically express what he thought about Scottie refusing to re-enter the game and how he felt it would impact his legacy negatively. For those of you who never heard this is the first time I'm ever hearing this. I want to play it for you now, and I'm going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to the sound here.
Phil, over the years, it feels like your relationship with Scottie Pippen has been complicated. Can you expound upon that?
Well, I was assistant coach when Scottie came into the game, and I played with him and against him one-on-one and tried to help his game out a little bit. And I was big in promoting Scottie because, we had Scottie coming off the bench, and I had to sub in as a coach for Doug Collins when he got thrown out of a game. And that was like the immediate thing I did. I put Scottie in the game and up the pressure defense because this is one of the best defensive players ever to play the game. So I had a lot of admiration for him and had a lot of contact with him. He was the on-court guy that I alerted all the time when defensive strategies would come, double teams, traps, etc. Whistle, hey, Scottie, it's time, whatever. So, yeah, it was shocking to hear the comments that he made. But he had a situation that was coming off the bench, not being able to play the last few seconds of a basketball game that was critical, and it made a big change in his life. Michael called the next day from baseball and said, I don't know if Scottie will ever be able to live this down, and I think it's been a hard thing to live down. Refusing to go in a ball game because things didn't go your way.
Excellent. So you heard what Phil Jackson had to say about the private conversation that him and Michael Jordan had. What are my thoughts about this? I think that Jordan is saying something that a lot of people felt. And I do kind of see those people that said, oh, Jordan shouldn't have put that in the last. Look, here's my thing. It would have been one thing if the Last Dance docuseries was all about the highs in Michael Jordan's career, all of the positive moments, and he was highlighting the lows and everybody else and his teammates. But he also highlighted the lows of his career as well. So that's the part that, if he's willing to talk about his dirty laundry and show himself in a light that he said he wasn't so sure he would be comfortable if people seeing him that way, then who are you? Now, some people are saying, well, just leave that part out, man. Just talk about the positive. No, because you're not really telling the story. You're not really telling the story. You're not telling the story properly. You're just picking the nice parts, but you're not giving the whole picture. You're not talking about the low moments. You just want to talk about the high moments. It's like, come on, knock it off. You got to tell the full story. Now, some people say, "Oh, Jordan, this is about Jordan," and Jordan made it about. Look. Let me just say this, okay? Let's just say this. All right, let me just say this. Did MJ win all those titles on his own? No. But let's not get it confused. Michael Jordan was a supernova, right? We've never seen anything like that guy since. Before he got to the Chicago Bulls, they were a nothing of an organization, an absolute nothing. And I know back then, especially with that organization, they really believed in the separation of church and state, by meaning that management felt, we're going to handle our job. You're not going to have any interference in what we're doing. And you guys as the players are going to play you're going to do your roles, right? So the role that Jordan performed, as being the leader of the players, he led them. And some people can question his leadership methods, but they worked. He was able to extract extraordinary success with applying his method of leadership. That's one part. The second part that I think a lot of these guys have to come to terms with the fact that Jordan is the reason. Let's just keep it a bean for a second. We would not care about most of these guys if they didn't play with Michael Jordan. And some of his former teammates who participated in the Last Dance docuseries understood this. They understood what role they played in the grand scheme of things. We're still talking about Scottie Pippen to this day because he was Michael Jordan's teammate. This is the fact that nobody wants to embrace. There have been other top 75 players. Do you see us talking about them on a daily basis? No. But Jordan keeps everybody's name relevant. For goodness sake, they were even, I think, going on a No Bulls tour to kind of like a rebuttal tour of what took place in the like, come on, the people want to hear because Michael Jordan's name is attached to it. Like, what are we talking about here? So people are like, oh, you gave Jordan too much of the spotlight. I'm confused. Like, I'm confused. Was it not him that was selling all those shoes, or was it you? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, it almost seems like people are overestimating the impact that they had. And Jordan, in my personal view, always gave Scottie Pippen his credit. Always. Especially publicly. Always. You can't pull up a clip of Jordan just saying outright negative things about him. You can't. Right? You can't unless you go to the Last Dance docuseries when you say, well, that was a selfish move. But didn't he say nice things about him? Or is it that, I'm confused here. I'm confused. So to me, man, look, I think what Jordan said ended up being the truth. Because even if we didn't know that Michael Jordan had this conversation with Phil Jackson, everybody felt the same way. And deep down, I think Scottie Pippen knows that was the wrong thing to do. Hence the reason he's so angry about it. Because if it was the right thing to do, you stand by it. You will stand by it. You would stand by it. So to me, man, look. Like, people need to understand, like, what like, people need to come to grips with reality here. Like, it's Michael Jordan, bro. Like, come on. Like, come on. Knock it off. As you guys remember, back in 2020, during the pandemic, Michael Jordan dropped the Last Dance docuseries. And it absolutely took over the sports world. I mean, we were all glued to it. I think the first weekend they published two episodes, and then they were releasing, I think it was an episode every week or 2 episodes. I don't remember. I think it was 1. I don't remember. I know the first week it was 2. And we were just captivated, right? Especially us younger fans that didn't really get to witness Michael Jordan in his prime because we weren't old enough, just to kind of to go back in that time. It was almost like a time capsule. You went back there and you were in the 90s, kind of witnessing the rise of Michael Jordan and the historic dynastic run of the Chicago Bulls. And we all thought it was great. But little did we know that at the end of the docuseries, it would spark this, salvo and just all-out assault from Scottie Pippen towards Michael Jordan and his former teammate, his former teammate Michael Jordan, his former head coach, Phil Jackson. And the entire thing was really set off during a Dan Patrick interview that Scottie Pippen did, where he absolutely went to town. And on top of it all, he ended up calling Phil Jackson a racist. And a lot of us were just absolutely floored. And I remember when we covered this. So for those of you who don't remember the explosive comments that Scottie Pippen made 5 years ago, we want to play for you now. And then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to Scottie Pippen here on the Dan Patrick Show.
Help me understand the GQ article where you talked about the 1994 playoff game when you refused to go back in the game and Phil set up the play for Tony Kukoc.
Well, I mean, it's not much to be said. If you go back and look at when Scottie Pippen entered the Bulls and when Tony Kukoc entered the Bulls and who deserved the last shot of the game.
No. I understand that, Scotty. I'm just going by what you said. You said you need to read between the fine lines. And then you go on to say it was a racial move to give him, Tony Kukoc, a rise. So,
well, I mean, if you knew that Scottie Pippen had been with the Bulls from 87, battled through the Pistons and every other team that we had to get to those 3 championships, wouldn't you give Scottie Pippen one opportunity to get a last-second shot without Michael Jordan? Like 1 year without Michael Jordan. Can I get one shot? Like, I'm doing all the dirty work.
But all of that I understand from the basketball standpoint. But when you say a racial move,
well, why would Tony, who was a rookie, get the last-second shot and you put me out of bounds? That's what I mean, racial. Like, that was Scottie Pippen's team.
But
Scottie
Phil
Pippen
then
was
but,
on pace to be an MVP that year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why would you put him in a position not to be successful? Why wouldn't you put him in a position to succeed? Michael Jordan is not there. So who's next in line for you?
But have you talked to Phil about this? Because by saying a racial move, then you're calling Phil a racist.
I don't got a problem with that.
Do you think Phil was or is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you remember Phil Jackson left the Lakers, wrote a book on Kobe Bryant, and then came back and coached him? I mean, who would do that? You name someone in professional sports that would do that. You know? I think he tried to expose Kobe in a way that he shouldn't have. You're the head coach, and you're the guy that sits in the locker room and tells the players, this is a circle, and everything stays within the circle because that's what team is about. But you as the head coach, open it up, and now you go out and you try to belittle, at that time, probably one of the greatest players in the game.
Well, it feels like he's disloyal. I don't know if that makes him a racist.
Well, that's your way of putting it out, and I have my way. I was in the locker room with him. I was in practices with him. You're looking for him afar.
Yeah, and look, that's why I wanted to have you on. But I go back, and Phil designed a play for Steve Kerr when Mike was there, and Mike didn't have a problem with that, did he?
I don't understand. You're not setting me up to answer the right question. What do you mean Phil set up a play for Steve Kerr? He didn't set that play for Steve Kerr. He set that play for Michael Jordan.
I thought in the huddle, Mike says, I'm going to throw you the ball. You'll be open at the foul line. And Phil had nothing to do with that?
And you don't want to get this show started because it'll take us a long time. Do you know all those cameras that's sitting in that huddle who they was working for?
The NBA.
So you know who Michael was speaking to when he said that, right? That was planned. That was speaking to the camera. That wasn't speaking out of what we're going to have to do, what the play is going to be. That was speaking to the camera. Had John Stockton not came down, trust me. But that was building his own documentary because he knew he was controlling the cameras.
So you heard what Scottie Pippen had to say there. So yesterday they were interviewing. I came across a clip from the Dan Patrick Show where they were interviewing Phil Jackson, right? And I don't know, like it was just something that just popped up on my radar. And they were there talking about this new book that I think he was in collaboration with someone, I forgot the gentleman's name, with. And then Dan Patrick ultimately decided to ask Phil Jackson, what did he think about what Scottie Pippen said when he basically went on that tirade? And Phil Jackson, in the typical Phil Jackson fashion, gave you his thoughts. Take a listen to him here.
Phil, over the years, it feels like your relationship with Scottie Pippen has been complicated. Can you expound upon that?
Well, I was assistant coach when Scottie came into the game, and I played with him and against him one-on-one and tried to help his game out a little bit. And I was big in promoting Scottie because, we had Scottie coming off the bench, and I had to sub in as a coach for Doug Collins when he got thrown out of a game. And that was like the immediate thing I did. I put Scottie in the game and up the pressure defense, because this is one of the best defensive players ever to play the game. So I had a lot of admiration for him and had a lot of contact with him. He was the on-court guy that I alerted all the time when defensive strategies would come, double teams, traps, etc. Whistle, hey Scottie, it's time, whatever. So yeah, it was shocking to hear the comments that he made. But he had a situation that was coming off the bench, not being able to play the last few seconds of a basketball game that was critical, and it made a big change in his life. Michael called the next day from baseball and said, I don't know if Scottie will ever be able to live this down. And I think it's been a hard thing to live down, refusing to go in a ball game because things didn't go your way.
Michael,
Dan, I wanted to add something briefly with that. I thought it was really poignant. Phil's kept a good relationship with Michael. I've seen him occasionally, but we don't chat as much as he and Phil might. And when some of those things came out, and we talked about this in the book that Phil had asked Michael about that. And Michael really expressed regret. I thought it was really poignant that Michael told Phil that he feels terrible about losing the relationship with Scottie, a 20, 25-year relationship that was closer than a lot of people thought. And so, it struck me as really poignant that Michael felt a loss about this.
Phil, the Dennis Rodman relationship, certainly different, but it almost felt like you had these big personalities and you gave everybody almost their own longitude and latitude. Is that fair to say?
So you heard what Phil had to say. What are my thoughts about this? I think Phil had the same reaction that a lot of people had, which was just utter surprise, right? People were taken aback, like, what? Right? And then he called him a racist. And the reason he called Phil Jackson was a racist was because he was showing preferential treatment to Tony Kukoc. Now, basketball historians that remember this moment and saw it live would tell you, no, that was absolutely not the case. That Scottie Pippen was he was just looking for a way to lash out at somebody, and he probably didn't like the fact that this was mentioned in the docuseries, so he just went at everybody, including Michael Jordan and his former head coach. To me, calling Phil Jackson a racist was a bit of a stretch, and the reason I'm gonna say that is because I'd never heard any other player that Phil played for call him a racist. Shaq played for Phil Jackson. I never heard that. Kobe Bryant played for Phil Jackson. I never heard that. Lamar Odom played for Phil Jackson. I never heard that. Derek Fisher played for Phil Jackson. I never heard that. Michael Jordan played with Phil Jackson. I never heard that. For goodness sakes, Michael Jordan said he wouldn't come back if his coach wouldn't return. Would Jordan say that about a racist? I mean, come on. Like, we had never heard anything like that. Like, it was just such a stretch. But it wasn't just what he said about Phil. It was also what he said about Jordan. Right. And we've heard Scottie Pippen flip flop on a lot of the things that he said about Michael Jordan. Some of it later on, which he said was absolutely shocking. Like, the guy was a terrible basketball player, terrible teammate. And I'm like, terrible guy. I'm like, well, if you thought all of these things about him, why were you guys always chummy every time we saw you guys in public? Why did you even decide to participate in the Last Dance docuseries at all if you felt like Jordan was this type of human being, such a deplorable human being? So a lot of us were calling BS on it. And I think unexpectedly, what ended up happening was that Scottie ended up turning off a lot of fans. And a lot of Chicago Bull diehard fans were really disappointed in what Scottie Pippen had to say. At the end, like, it didn't work out in his favor because a lot of Bulls fans were like, Scottie, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing? I mean, you're saying MJ's this terrible person, yet every time MJ's talking about you, he's always giving you praise. During your Hall of Fame speech, who was the one that helped spoke on your behalf? Was it not Michael Jordan? Like, it was just crazy stuff. You know, Jordan always gave him credit publicly, so it was pretty interesting finally hearing from Phil Jackson after the aftermath of the Last Dance docuseries. Let's get into this topic here. So we came across a clip yesterday from the Colin Cowherd show where he was talking about LeBron James, and the title of the video or the show was "Should Lakers Move On from LeBron?" Right? This video was published just yesterday on his platform. And funny enough, we had actually put up a number of polls yesterday on our channel. And here are the polls that we put up. The first one said, about 10 hours ago, about 4,000 plus people have voted. And we asked the question, do the Lakers need LeBron James? Out of the 4,200 voters, 87% of them said no, while 13% of them said yes. The next poll we put up, can the Lakers make the playoffs without LeBron? Out of the 2,000 voters on that poll, 93% said yes, while 7% said no. So the basic sentiment is this. The Lakers don't need him because they're winning games. Right now, they're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. I think they have the second best record in the NBA. And, excuse me, Laker fans feel like they can go pretty far without him, right? And I would tend to agree with that. Look, we've heard some news that LeBron is gearing up to have 5-on-5 contact and scrimmages, and then he's going to be reevaluated again in another 2 weeks. Look, I've been in the mindset of I don't want LeBron to come back this year. Like, I wouldn't mind. Not to say I want him to be injured. I wouldn't want him to come back because I won't lie to you, it's been a lot of fun rooting for the Lakers again. I haven't been able to root for the Lakers since Kobe Bryant retired, and this guy got there. It's been a long time, so it feels fantastic. It feels good to root for the team, talk about the team. There isn't any real drama. If we're talking about a particular player, it's not to cover up for another guy. Like on nights when we talk about Ayton where he didn't play up to snuff, but he's been playing pretty well as of recent. So it just feels good, and you can feel this kind of positive energy. And there are a lot of NBA fans, particularly Laker fans, that are afraid that if he comes back, he may mess up what the team has going. Right? It's a real fear. And one of the people that thinks that the Lakers should consider moving on from him is Colin Cowherd himself. And he went on a pretty long monologue giving the reasons why he thinks that, look, the Lakers may need to consider moving on from LeBron James. Take a listen to what Colin had to say here, and I'm going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to Colin Cowherd here.
So LeBron James has not played this year. He will not reportedly go on the Lakers' 5-game road trip. He's got a sciatica issue. That's a nerve in the lower back, and also where Napoleon was exiled to, sciatica. So my least favorite quality in men is high maintenance and neediness. And I'm not saying LeBron's doing that, but there's some supposition that LeBron has his feelings hurt because he hasn't been offered an extension. So I don't know if that's true or not. I think LeBron's smart enough to know the torch has been passed in LA. And this has always been, the Lakers have always been a pass the torch organization, right? Like Kareem to Magic to Shaq to Kobe to LeBron. And it's clearly been passed, not only in ownership from the Buss family to the Dodgers owners, but now it's Luka's team. And the Lakers don't need LeBron to sell tickets, just like they didn't need Kareem to sell tickets, just like eventually they found out they didn't need Shaq to sell tickets. There's always somebody in LA making a debut. And they're in Los Angeles, the stars are almost all young and ascending. Your Otanis and your Yoshis and your Justin Herberts and your Puka Nakuas and your Lukas. They're all young and ascending with very few exceptions. I also feel like the league has a little bit of LeBron fatigue. I also feel like LeBron was never in Los Angeles nearly as popular as Magic, I think he's in the Kareem popularity more than the Kobe or the Magic. So, my takeaway in all this, LeBron's got to fall in line or leave. This is not Cleveland, and it's not even Miami. So it's a pass the torch city. And when I look at LeBron right now, are his feelings getting hurt a little bit? Does he feel like he should have been offered a contract extension? Because LA welcomed LeBron. They didn't worship him. Sorry. In my lifetime, Magic's the most popular Laker of all time. Kobe's the second most popular Laker of all time. There's an argument Jerry West was the third most popular Laker of all time. LeBron's not. And you got to remember, for Rich Paul and LeBron, and again, maybe they aren't in their fields. But LeBron, do you realize the Lakers in his entire career, this is the longest he's ever been in one team for a concurrent stretch, the Lakers. So he's been an interloper and signed 1-year deals for most of his career. So nobody's going to lose any sleep if they're a little less loyal to LeBron than LeBron wants. He may understand all of this. He may get absolutely all of this. But my take is on this is you can feel it. LeBron is going to have to play off ball. It is Luka's team. It is J.J. Redick's vision. For most of LeBron's career, I always said this, Kevin Durant could play anywhere. You can get him the ball late in the shot clock. He can hit shots. Steph Curry and LeBron become your offensive ecosystem. Golden State has discovered young guys don't work with Steph Curry. It's just too hard. It's just too quick, too smart, too fast. That's why Steph works with older players really, really well. Immediately with KD, always with Draymond, quickly with Andrew Bogut. Young guys he struggles with. And LeBron, he has been the centerpiece. He's very opposite of KD. He becomes your offensive ecosystem, and it's over. That is done. You cannot coach this organization going forward with LeBron being a centerpiece. He's just an asset. And there are nights that Austin Reeves needs the ball and has a mismatch advantage. You don't want to see old guys just hanging on.
What are my thoughts about what Colin said? Look, this just kind of shows you a shift in the tide, because 5 years ago, you would never hear the Colin Cowherds of the world saying LeBron like the Lakers. Like, they would never say that, right? Because LeBron was still at the peak of his powers in terms of his importance to the league and being the face, et cetera, et cetera. But now that, he's pretty much on his way out, LeBron, I don't know, he's going to play for another maybe 2-3 years. I don't know how long he's going to play for. People are now beginning to move on, right? People are now beginning to move on to the next thing. But also, people can see what's going on in LA. Luka is clearly the guy. Okay, they're already having conversations about, is Luka the best player to play for the Lakers since Kobe Bryant? Like, we're already having that conversation. Luka is putting on full display why he is a top 3, top 5 player in the world. Right? He still complains too much for me on the court, with the referees, but the guy is still, he's showing you. And in the midst of all of that, he's also making the Dallas Mavericks, especially Nico Harrison, look like a damn dunce. Because it's looking like one of the worst trades in NBA history, given the ineptitude that's taking place down there in Dallas with the Dallas Mavericks. So Laker fans are finally excited. They see a team that's gelling. You see guys that are building chemistry with one another. JJ Redick kind of seems to have an idea of what he wants to do with this team. They're beginning to have an identity. And then when you now bring back a LeBron James, when you airdrop him back into a situation like this, there's always a chance that it may change what's already working, because he's so big of a piece and so big of a personality. Now, I want to address something that's been said out there. I saw the show from Too Raw. Apparently, he was reacting to what Ticket TV said about LeBron coming up. LeBron James is not coming off the bench. Like, we just need to kill that dream. It's that pipe is never going to happen. There's no world where LeBron James is coming off the bench. It's not going to happen. Forget about if y'all think it's going to be good for it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And LeBron is going to tell you, you want me, an all-NBA player, to come off the bench for who? You want LeBron to come off the bench for who? Who's he gonna be coming off the bench by? That's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. Ever. In my scenario, when I was talking about possible ways this team could win, earlier this summer or whatever, I said that the guy that would need to come off the bench is Austin Reeves. So you have another playmaker coming off of the bench, and you still have two playmakers on the floor. There is no way on God's green earth that Austin Reeves will be a starter, or Jake Lavario, whoever else, the Vanderbilt or whoever, is going to be a starter, but LeBron James is going to. It's just not going to happen. Don't expect it to happen. Don't expect LeBron to do that. He ain't gonna do that. It just ain't gonna happen. So let's just kill that talking point immediately. That ain't gonna happen. I never thought it would happen, and it ain't gonna happen. In terms of this, though, Colin makes a point, right? He makes a point. But in order to move LeBron, it would have to be something that he himself would request because he has that no trade clause. So the likelihood of that happening, I don't really see it. So long time good friend of Stephen A. Smith, Michelle Beadle, is pissed off out. I'm just being facetious here. Michelle Beadle is not a fan of Stephen A. Smith whatsoever. So as you guys know, last year, I believe it was during the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. I don't remember exactly when. I think it might have been the finals. Stephen A. Smith was at one of the games, I believe in Indiana or something. And somebody took a picture of him playing solitaire on his phone. Right? And as if that wasn't bad enough, Stephen A. Smith then comes back and starts shouting at the blah, 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 you know how he normally does. And then not too long ago, I think this week, I think he did some kind of sponsorship or brand partnership or whatever, I think with solitaire. I saw some kind of weird ad. I didn't watch too much of it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's 2025. These things happen, whatever. Well, apparently, former ESPN analyst Michelle Beadle wasn't a fan of this. And she absolutely ripped into Stephen A. Smith. I want to read the headline from an article from Awful Announcement saying, Michelle Beadle ripped Stephen A. Smith over solitaire scandal. I pray for the downfall. What? All right, let's continue on. It says, Michelle Beadle doesn't have much reason to extend any graces toward ESPN star Stephen A. Smith. The First Take host blindsided Beadle earlier this year by announcing a new Sirius XM radio show in her time slot before Beadle had an idea her job was in jeopardy. Now, off of Sirius XM and her own platform with co-host Cody Decker, who was also bounced by Stephen A. Smith when Stephen A. Smith came knocking, Beadle is telling it how she sees it. And the former ESPN host did not hold back when she discussed Smith's latest controversy. Earlier this week, Stephen A. Smith endorsed an app called Solitaire Cash, owned by Papaya Gaming, as a means of capitalizing on his viral moment in which he was caught playing solitaire during the NBA Finals earlier this year. A court recently found Papaya defrauded customers by introducing bots into competitors that would purportedly only feature other human players. Those bots were able to determine outcomes for the players, either win or lose, costing players real money. Numerous top ESPN personalities joined Smith in endorsing the app. Beadle is fed up. On the latest episode of Beadle and Decker, she unloaded on Smith for what she sees as gross behavior. Honestly, I'm not a religious person, but I pray for the downfall, said Beadle per Barrett Media. It's gross. Man, you got to have principles in this thing. ESPN pays him $1 gazillion to get a lot of stuff wrong and yell, Beadle continued. He gets caught playing solitaire during the NBA freaking finals. You created this monster. He is bigger than you now. And that's exactly your fault. You let him run rampant all over that company. He made you look like fools for handing him a blank check in the first place, she added. He didn't give a bleep about the stuff that he gets paid $1 gazillion to talk about. Now he's turning around and turning it into a money-making opportunity. Then the money-making opportunity looks like a fraudulent crap business to begin with. It didn't stop there. It continues on. I don't know how much shilling is going on behind the scenes, but people in our industry have embarrassed themselves in ways I don't think I've ever seen, Decker said. Then continues on. You have them all fighting for solitaire ads for Stephen A. Smith. You have all of them, these dip bleeps, just shilling themselves out. Let's just call it what it is. Whoring themselves out for out as harshly as they can, bro. They went in on you, man. They went in. Well, what are my thoughts about all of this? Look, clearly, Michelle Beadle isn't a fan of Stephen A. Smith. And I can understand that. Why? Because Stephen A. Smith, he can be polarizing. Let's just put it like that. He can turn people off. And I think one of the things that turns people off about Stephen A. Smith is that in moments when he gets things wrong, instead of just saying, hey man, look guys, I messed up, he doubles down, triples down, quadruples down. And that really turns a lot of people off. So even with this incident during the NBA Finals when he was playing solitaire, he was even shouting back at people. Like, how dare you say that? I'm like, bro, what are we doing here? Even the thing with Kwame Brown, instead of just saying, hey, man, look, I went too far with it. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have said. He doubled down then, went and put out a low light reel, right? It's just, that's just the way it is. Now, in terms of these guys, all of them at the network promoting this solitaire app, isn't it the world we live in? Now, I played solitaire when I was young. I never understood the game. I never really liked it, to be honest with you. But I guess a lot of people do. Hence the reason he's marketing it. But look, at this point is one big money grab. Everybody trying to make money, man. Everybody trying to get to the bag. Everybody is moolah hungry. Everybody trying to stack their bread. Everybody trying to get paid. And if it means for Stephen A. Smith to take your spot at Sirius XM, so be it. Stephen A. Smith is an unabashed capitalist. He said it. He just signed a $100 million deal. I think with that and what he has going on with I think Sirius XM, he's getting paid roughly $40 million. You better believe at the end of all of this, he's going to try to re-up and try to get 80 or 50 or 60 or $70 million. Why? Because Stephen A. Smith is trying to chase Joe Rogan. And look, I understand that, it's good to make money. Everybody wants to be successful. I would never tell you not to make money because I would never tell you that because it costs money. You need money to do things in this world. So I would never tell you that. I would just say this though. And look, I think it happens to all of us. Sometimes you can be doing well for yourself, but you may still feel empty because you're still comparing yourself to other people. You're like, well, I'm doing this, but he's doing that, and I'm trying to figure out how I can do that. And just know that that thing never ends because you're always going to find somebody doing better than you. You're always going to find someone that's doing better than you. So at a certain point, you got to kind of understand what makes you happy, right? And what your limit is. Not your limit in terms of, okay, I don't want any more money beyond this. No, but once you understand the things that make you happy, then you understand that you're not in this constant pursuit because you can go to your grave still never being fulfilled. One person that reminded me of that? Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone used to talk like a poor person. Grant Cardone would always be complaining about I think there was a video that Marco and I discussed a few years ago where he talked to this guy and he said, Grant Cardone was talking to this guy and he goes, so how much money did you make this year? He said, man, Grant Cardone wasn't the one responding. He's the one that asked the question. And the guy goes, I think we made like 150 million or some number like that, or like some number, like a very high number. And Grant Cardone says to the guy, how can you live with yourself? Like as if to say, that's all you did? Like, how can you live with yourself, right? And the reason Grant is saying stuff like that, because he's looking at Mark Cuban and these guys. All right. Mark Cuban is a billionaire. So he's like, I'm making all this money, but Cuban is a billionaire, right? Forgetting that Cuban is looking at the next guy who's maybe worth $100 billion, like a Steve Ballmer, right? And then Ballmer may be looking at the next guy like Musk. Oh, by the way, y'all heard Elon Musk just got a $1 trillion payout. So I guess he just ended the game for everybody, right? So in the pursuit of making money and all that, you miss the point at times. You're doing good, but because you're so busy looking at the next guy and how well the next guy is doing, you can never appreciate how well you're doing. And you got to be careful with that. So to tie it all back into what we're talking about here, you know, you got to be, bro, they trying to get to the bag, Michelle. They trying to get to the bag. And this is what you're going to get.